तत्परं पर्यय विद्महे ज्ञानलिङ्गेश्वराय धीमहि तन्नो गुरुः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ योग महर्षि डॉक्टर स्वामी गीतानंद गिरी गुरु महाराज की जय। नमस्ते, स्वागतम, वणक्कम, सुप्रभात, शुभ दिनम, bonjour, buongiorno, huya more, kia ora, boreida, salamat pagi. Welcome from whichever part of the world you are logging in for our scintillating Saturdays, number 55 today. The number 5 is going to be reverberating again and again today, so it's 55. This morning, we are going to be looking into the energies, the pranas, the energies that enable us to be a functioning human being. Energies that connect us with the cosmos, because we are cosmic beings. We are cosmic beings, we are universal beings, we are solar beings, we are divine beings. The energy of the cosmos, prana. Prana is the energy of the cosmos. That energy that has been, is and will be, and just keeps changing forms. The universal energy is called the Mahaprana, the Mukhya Prana, the Vishwa Prana. Maha meaning great, Mukhya meaning the most important or the supreme, the prime, the chief. Mukhya Mantri, we talk about the chief minister. Mukhya Prana, the most important prana, which is the universal prana. It's called the Mahaprana, the grand, great, magnificent prana. And it can be called Vishwa Prana because it is universal. This prana has existed before anything else. Prana. That which preceded anything. So before creation, that which existed before creation, that which has been and is not created. Because energy is neither created nor destroyed, it only changes form. Now this Mahaprana is the cosmos. It's a macrocosm. The Andam, the Anda Charachara. The Anda Charachara. The cosmos that includes the Chara and the Achara, that which moves and that which doesn't move. The moving and the non-moving, the living and the non-living of the whole universe. That which percolates and pervades everything of the Anda Charachara, that prana. Because even the non-moving, the non-living have prana of a very primitive nature. You can say they have the least, or that the prana vibrates at the slower speed of vibration in the non-living beings. But there is a prana. Otherwise, it would not be held together. Because prana is the catalyst that holds everything together. No prana, everything falls apart. And that is why it is the loss of prana that is death. Aprana. When you move from the prana to aprana, you lose the prana, you move from life to death. And in between lies decay, degeneration. So when something starts to decay, degenerate and move into the death spectrum, it means the prana is slowly leaving. Whereas when something is alive, kicking and thriving, well, there's a lot of prana there. So the universal prana that percolates the Anda Charachara will also percolate us in our pinda. The word pinda refers to the physical manifestation through this body. Anda and Pinda. And of course, those who know me know that the next thing I'm going to do is chant a verse from one of the great Siddhas of South India. When people talk about yoga and the history of yoga, you often find the whole of South India is missing in it. The Siddha tradition is missing. And one of the greatest Siddhas is, of course, Tirumoolar, who gives 3,000 verses. And yesterday I was so happy to find and share a very beautiful article on the Tamil aspect of the yoga tradition through Tirumoolar by Kanix, who has also done that amazing Yoga Darshan musical video. This is how I would like yoga to be represented in the dharmic pattern, in tune with Dharma. One of the Siddhas, and there are many Siddhas, at least 18 most important Siddhas. We always in India, it's like a Sankhya tendency. We like to always say, of all the Siddhas, there are 100 important. Of the 100, there are 18 important. Of the 18, there will be 10. Of the 10, there's one. You know, there will always come these type of statements you'll find very commonly in Indian culture. So they say there are 18 important Siddhas, but there are many, many. One of the Siddhas is called Satta Muni Siddha. And he has given a beautiful verse where he says, what's in the cosmic macrocosm is in us as a microcosm. So the macro and the micro, they are the same. So he says, what's in the cosmos is in us, what is in us is in the cosmos. And we and the cosmos are one and the same when we truly realize it. So when you start to contemplate it, and when you start to go into the depth of it, you start to then at that moment realize the truth. You realize the truth that the cosmos and us are one and the same. Andathil ullade pindam, pindathil ullade andam. Andathil ullade pindam, pindathil ullade andam. Andamum pindamum ஒன்றே, அண்டமும் பிண்டமும் ஒன்றே, அறிந்து தான் பார்க்கும் போது. அண்டமும் பிண்டமும் ஒன்றே, அறிந்து தான் பார்க்கும் போது. When you go inside, when you realize it, when you contemplate it, you realize what's in the andam is in the pindam, what's in the pindam is the andam. So this universal Mahaprana, the mother prana, the great divine mother prana, it has to percolate through us, the individual. The cosmos percolates through us. And this is why that percolation of the prana through us is where we come into the concept of the prana vayu. So let's look at this term, prana vayu. Prana, I have tried to explain the life force, the universal cosmic energy that holds everything together, that enables life to exist. What is Vayu? Well, the literal translation by all these translators is wind. Wind. So Vayu is the wind. Yes, it's the wind. So here then they say, oh, there are 5 winds in you. You wind yourself up and, you know, you let out a bit of wind now and then, or a bit of steam. But, you know, that literal translation, this is where all the translators have been people who didn't understand the culture or the subject. You need a translator who understands the culture and the subject if you want to get the translation to be done properly. Otherwise, you end up with a lot of stuff lost in translation or mistranslated, which is even worse. The term Vayu means wind, air, the air element. However, in this context, what it means is a flow. So I want you to keep in mind that the word prana vayu, don't translate it as the 5 airs, the 5 winds, but try to retranslate it and understand it as the 5 flows of prana within us. So there is the universal prana. When that universal prana comes through us, there are 5 flows through which the universal prana flows through us, enabling us to function as a human being. So it is psycho-physiological. Now you say, what does psycho mean? Mental case, psychotic. No, what it means, psycho means the psyche. Now, the modern understanding, which is based on the Western, academia, thinks of psyche as your thoughts and emotions. Thoughts and emotions. However, the Indian cultural concept of psyche here, which is Adi, refers to your connectivity to the cosmos itself. So in India, when we say psychosomatic, it is not just your thoughts and emotions affecting your body, but it is your connection with the cosmos that has been, dissipated, lost. You have lost connection. The Wi-Fi connection with the cosmos got lost. And so there is psychosomatic disassociation. Adija Vyadi. The diseases coming because of this psyche, these are not just the mind, the thoughts and the emotions, which is the modern understanding. This is that you have lost connection with the cosmos. And as Swamiji so beautifully says, the first disease is duality. When you think that I am different than the cosmos, the universe in which I live, you have lost your connection. So, the energy of the cosmos, Mahaprana, Mukhya Prana, Prana Mata, Mother Prana, Vishwa Prana, comes into us, and that energy has 5 flows. It's the same energy. The energy is not different. But now, the way it flows through us, enabling different physiological functions to occur. That is where it becomes a Prana Vayu. So Prana Vayu is when there is a flow of prana occurring in us. Now when it is flowing in the universe, you don't call it a Prana Vayu. It is just prana. In the universe, it is just prana. But then when it comes down to our level, it starts to have Prana Vayu, because at this point now suddenly you need to have physiological functions. You need to become a functional being. So we are an anatomical structural being, Annamaya Kosha. This Annamaya Kosha has to then start to function. So the functioning of your Annamaya Kosha. Okay, I hope you are getting what I am saying. The functioning of our Annamaya Kosha, which was structural existence, the functioning is dependent on the flow of prana through us. And when prana flows through us as an individual, it takes on 5 functional variations. So these are called the Vayu. And this is why we should not translate it as wind or air, because then people think that there is wind moving around all the time. One of the mistranslations that can occur here, and is very dangerous, is that, one of the prana vayus, we are going to come into them, is called Vyana. Vyana. This Vyana is the energy of circulation. So it circulates throughout the body. So the energy of circulation, that is your blood, your arteries, your veins, your capillaries, your lymphatics, all of this is part of the Vyana energy. Along with this, all the sensory motor neuronal circulation. So all the nerves that are working and bringing the sensations from the body to the brain and taking the motor commands from the brain to the body, all of this is governed by the Vyana. Because it's functional. Sensory impulses have to come to your brain. That is a functional aspect. Motor impulses from the brain have to go to the rest of the body. It is functional. The arteries carry blood away from the heart. Veins carry blood to the heart. So it is functional. And in between the capillary level, there is the exchange occurring. That is functional. And whatever is left behind, the lymphatics has to bring it back. All of this is functionality of Vyana. So Vyana is said to be Sarva Shariragaha. It is throughout, Sarva Sharira, throughout your whole body, it is flowing. Now you know what? If you translate Vyana as a wind or air, you will have people saying, the wind is moving in my toes. I have air in my toes. Now I hope you don't have air in your toes. You can have air in your nose, but not in your toes. But just see how absurd the translations become. So you have people, feel the air moving through your toes. I'm like, air in your toes. Air, well, not in your toes, please. What they mean is the flow of the energy. But because we have had translators who don't understand the cultural context, when you keep the cultural context, what is the culture? It is that which is timeless living. Culturing means to help the living growth. Agriculture, seroculture, sericulture, periculture. You are culturing, you are enabling something to grow in the appropriate environment. That is what culture means. So culture is the environment in which the appropriate growth can occur. Not cancerous malignancy, but healthy, appropriate growth and development occurs in the living culture. That ethos has to be there, the cultural ethos. You have to create the ambience, the spirit, to facilitate the nurturing of the nature. The nature is there. It has to be nurtured. That is where the cultural ethos comes in. So coming back here, you have the universal prana coming into us as an individual with the first breath of life. With the first breath of life, that universal prana comes into us, goes into the Manipura, and suddenly now the Jivatma has this whole experience, and the Jiva and the prana, they move together and the whole body is percolated, where you now are living through every cell. Those trillions of cells of you are living through each and every one of them. That experience is with the first breath of life, where that Mahaprana comes into us and suddenly the individual becomes a living entity, a separate living entity. Till then you were dependent on the life force of your mother. As long as you were in your mother's womb, you were dependent on the life force of your mother. When you are born and you take that first breath of life, it is at that point that you become an individual entity, a Jivatma that is now functional through the prana that moves through us and has all these different flows, functional distributions. So when this prana comes into us, it splits into 5 functional major divisions. So just as in your home, your house, the main electricity comes into your house, then that electrical energy in your house will then have different functions. It's the same energy when it comes into your house, okay? The same energy comes into your house. What is your house? Your body, okay? Energy coming into your body, prana coming into the Annamaya and now the Pranamaya, and it becomes function. The energy comes into your house. In your house now, the energy starts to do different functions. It manifests different functional aspects of your house and home. And so you have the light, you have the heating, the cooling, the thermal energy. You have your microwave, heating energy. And you have your audio-visual energy, where your computer comes alive, your television comes alive, your home stereo system comes alive, and all of that audio-visual experience, it's the same energy, okay? It's coming into your house as one energy. Mahaprana, Mukhya Prana, Vishwa Prana, Pranamata. Now what has happened? It has become audio-visual energy. It's become thermal energy. It's become mechanical. Your fan is running, it becomes mechanical energy. It's all the same energy, but depending on its function, you start to give it a new name. So same energy is running your microwave, that is running your fan. But because of its function, you call it by a different name. Now the same thing happens here. The universal energy has come into us. The universal energy, when it comes into us, it starts to do different functions. The most important function, respiration. Okay. When you want to know if somebody is alive or dead, most of the time you look at their chest movements, the abdominal and chest movement. If it's moving up, okay, the person's still alive. Any new parent, I guarantee you, has done this a zillion times during those initial months and maybe even years of bringing up the child. You have this newborn baby next to you, and you know, in the middle of the night you get up about a dozen times to just see whether it's still breathing or not. The moment you see that abdominal chest movement of breath, you're like, okay, fine, no issue, I can go back to sleep. One of the sure signs of life is breath. So respirational function, the function of respiration now is given a name, and this is where the confusion starts. It is also called prana. And so everybody gets confused between these two prana. That's why I have again and again said Mukhya prana, Mahaprana, Vishwa prana, Prana Mata. I called it all these names so that when I use this term prana here, you will not get confused. This is now the prana in the individual. And this prana in the individual, it is keeping the function of respiration going. So you are constantly breathing, respiring, and the exchange of gases can occur because of the presence of this functional aspect called prana. And this is what is working in your brain stem, your medulla oblongata, your pons, that midbrain, you know, that part, the brain stem. It is the part that is enabling the process of inspiration and expiration to occur. So the respirational process, the process of respiration, the function of respiration, the energy that is facilitating it now becomes prana. And it has its headquarters, the seat. The seat, you know, the seat of power they talk about. If you're down in Australia, the seat of power is in Canberra. In India, it's in Delhi. If it's Italy, it's Rome. If it is the UK, it is London. Depends on. And of course, if you're in North America and USA, you know it's all in Washington, D.C. The capital. The seat of power. The White House. You know, that's the seat of power. It doesn't mean that the President of the USA's power is only limited to the White House. Okay, but that is the seat. That is the headquarters. The headquarters of Google, the headquarters of Facebook, the headquarters of Amazon. So, similarly, the prana, which is facilitating the process of respiration here, its headquarters is in the heart region. So, when we talk about it, the Shiva Samhita gives a beautiful verse. Hridi prano. Hrida means heart. Hridaya. Hridaya is heart. Hridi prana. Hridi prano. So prana, its headquarters is the heart region. It doesn't mean that it is limited to the heart region. Many people misunderstand these verses. The headquarters is here, but its function will go all over the body. Because what is the function of prana? The function of respiration. So respiration, yes, when you breathe in, your lungs expand, you breathe in, your lungs collapse and you breathe out. So inhalation, exhalation, inspiration, expiration, inspirare, expirato, all this is happening. Breathe in, breathe out. But respiration is also happening at the cellular level. In every cell, there is cellular respiration. That cellular respiration is also governed by the same prana. So don't limit the Pancha Prana Vayus to only one place. They are functional. And anything that has function cannot be limited to one place. So people have done structural analogies, but they have not done functional analogies. So they say, oh, the heart region is where the prana is, as if there's no prana anyplace else. Every cell in your body will also have that prana, because that is the cellular respiration that is occurring. The second one, Gude Apana. Apana is at the anal region. So Apana is stuck at your anus. No. It is its headquarters. The headquarters of Apana is down at the end of your digestive tract. Apana is the energy of excretion, elimination. Apana is the energy of elimination. Eliminating from your body that which has no more use for you. The residue of the metabolic process. So yes, down there, in the morning you get up, you go and sit on your throne and you evacuate. You eliminate. You urinate. You defecate. So it all goes out that end. So yes, Apana is down at that end. But is it only at that end? And the answer is no. Because do you only sweat through your anus or through your urethra? You sweat through every pore in your skin. You sweat through every pore in your skin. I hope you do. If not, you will die of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Sweating is an expression of Apana. So don't limit it to a structural area. Don't limit these energies. These are unlimited. So just as prana has its headquarters in the heart region, Apana has its headquarters down at the anal region, but the functional aspect go throughout the body. Every cell in your body will be eliminating the waste products. It is the Apana energy functioning through every cell. Come to the third one, Samana. Samana Nabi Mandale. The navel region is where the Samana is. Yes, makes sense. Because this is where your stomach is. This is where the digestive juices of your pancreas and the liver, they come into the second part of the duodenum. And in that duodenum, the second part of the C-shaped duodenum, the food that you have eaten now is mixing with the digestive enzymes and digestion is occurring. Samana. Yes, Samana is here. But Samana is the energy not only of this process, cellular digestion. And let's take it to another level, mental digestion. You hear a concept, it's called Shravana. You then have to contemplate it, Manana, and be established in it, Nididhyasana. The digestion of a concept inside your consciousness is also governed by Samana Vayu. So Samana is not just the breakdown of the pizza you had last night. It is also the new concepts you may be hearing right now. Are you able to digest those concepts, which means break them down into simple molecules, and then those simple molecules inside you will be used to reform the concept, and now they come alive in you. Digestion is the process of breaking down complex and making it simple so that then the assimilation can occur. It is the breakdown, ingestion, then there has to be digestion, and then there has to be assimilation. Assimilation is where now all the small molecules are again put back together. So it is not just breakdown, but breaking the complex into simplex so that then the simplex can again become complex within you. The protein you eat has to be broken down into amino acids so that then those amino acids in you will be used to create new protein in you. The concepts I'm talking about, The concepts I'm talking about need to be digested by you, broken down into molecules, and then reformed in you as concepts that now come alive in you as your understanding of the concepts. Otherwise, it becomes what most people do. Learn and regurgitate. People are just eating and regurgitating. Bulimia of concepts. And they go and they regurgitate it in the exam and they get grades and yep, they are the top student. They have never assimilated the concept at all. They just took it in and great student. This is why you cannot study yoga. You have to live yoga. These are not concepts to be memorized and, oh yeah, I'm so wise because I know these concepts. Have they come alive in you? If they have not come alive in you, then what you are doing is, you might as well be sitting in the Big Mac and having your hamburger. Why waste your time on this? They have to come alive in you. So, prana is the energy of respiration. Apana is the energy of elimination. Now you know what? When you breathe out, there's also elimination of wastes. The respiratory process also helps elimination. That's also governed by the apana now. The respiration is governed by prana, but the elimination of waste through the breath as you breathe out will be governed by apana. This is where it has to be functional. These are living concepts, not just a dead body to be studied. Hridi prano gude apana samana nabi mandale. Okay, 3. Now come to the next one. Udana kanta deshasto. Udana. It is at the kanta, the throat. So what does udana do? It helps you communicate. The energy of communication, your Wi-Fi signals and your mobile phones, Udana Vayu. You are communicating the vocal apparatus, Vak, which is governed by the energy of Lord Shiva. And that's why it has to be Vak Vishuddhaya. Om Tad Maheshaya Vidmahe Vak Vishuddhaya Dhimahi Tanna Shivaha Prachodayate. Om Vak Vishuddha. The energy of Shiva has to come through here. Sada Shiva, that energy which is eternally auspicious. Your communication should be eternally auspicious. If you don't have something to say, keep quiet. Don't open your mouth for the sake of opening it. That's what is meant here. Vak Vishuddha. That energy of communication. Now this is not just communication, because if I am talking and there's nobody to hear, is it really communication? What happens in the deep Amazon forest where a tree falls and there's no ears to hear it? The process of communication is a combination of Vak, which is a karma indriya, a sense of action. You'll say, sir, I heard it as action sense. What do you mean by action sense? These are all senses. The sense of an action, the sense of communication is Vak. Vak is the sense of communication. Communication sense doesn't make sense. It is the sense of communication. The sense of locomotion is pada. So karma indriyas are the sense of an action. We translate them as action senses, and nobody has ever questioned why is it called action sense? What is the action? It is the sense you're having. You're having a sense, that is why it is an indriya. And it's a sense of action, so it is a karma indriya. Vak. But if I'm speaking and there's nobody on the other end to hear, and we have exactly 55 people, oh my God, it's gone to 59. It was exactly 55 and I said today's session 55. You people are pushing me into the next sessions. I have to communicate. I have to say something. There has to be somebody to listen. And you know what? This energy, Udana Vayu, is connected to the Vishuddha Chakra. Vishuddha Chakra is connected to the Akasha Tattva, the principle of space, ether, and connected to the Jnana Indriya, the sense of knowledge, wisdom, the sense that gives you information. The other is the sense of action. This is the sense of information. So, the sense of information, which is called Shrotra, which means Shrotra Akashayo Sambandha Samyamat. Shrotra Akasha. The hearing, listening, and the Akasha. Akasha and the Vak, communication. And all of this by the Udana Vayu. So for the process of communication, there has to be both a speaker and a listener. Communication implies both. So both the processes are governed by Udana Vayu. If you cannot hear properly, it may be a malfunction of the Udana Vayu. And Udana Vayu is connected to your Vishuddha Chakra. So you want to work on the Udana Vayu and Vishuddha Chakra. Start working on this area. So what are some asanas that can work on this area? Don't talk about speech therapy and all. Talk about the yogic perspective. Okay, yogognosis, as Acharya Birju Maharaj always calls it. Yogognosis. Yoga, Dwadasha Roga Lakshanam. The yogic perspective of 12 ways to understand the disease. So, Sarvangasana, yes, Sushant, you get A grade for that answer. Sarvangasana, Matsyasana, these are practices. Ujjayi Pranayama, the throat. Jalandhara Bandha. These are practices that will strengthen this. Ujjayi, Jalandhara Bandha, yes, Neil. Ujjayi, Jalandhara Bandha, Sarvanga, Matsya. I'm just giving you a few examples. What are you doing? You are working with this Udana. So, Udana is the energy of communication. It is the energy facilitating communication. Now, is it only what I say and you listen? There is also non-verbal communication. We Indians and in Italy, Italians are very good at non-verbal communication. You tie our hands behind our back, we cannot speak. Now we need our hands to speak. The non-verbal communication, the typical Indian head nod. All of this is part of the Udana Vayu. And every cell in your body is communicating. It has communicatory energy. So the Udana Vayu at the cellular level is enabling the cellular connection. Cellular respiration, cellular elimination, cellular metabolism and digestion. And along with that, now cellular communication, intracellular communication, intercellular communication. All of this is happening. And yes, Abba, yes, Brahma Mudra. Again, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying this is the one practice. I'm saying understand it from the yogic perspective. Why do we have to say, oh, you have a speech problem, so, from the diagnosis given by somebody else? The yogic diagnosis, the yogic assessment tool is telling you there is an issue here. Understand it from the yogic, based on yogic principles, and then use yogic practices. When you communicate with medical professionals, use their terms so that you can communicate with them effectively, efficiently, and in a competent, recognizable, respectable manner. That is how we further yoga chikitsa, yoga as a therapy. Udana kanta deshasto. And dhyana sarva shariragaha. Dhyana is the energy that is percolating throughout the body. I told you. All the circulation, be it arterial, venous, lymphatic, capillary, and all the neuronal flow, the sensory motor flow, the sensations coming from the whole body to the brain, and the motor commands from the brain going to the body. All of this is facilitated by dhyana. So if I want dhyana to be enhanced, this region again I have to work, because the neck is the bridge between the rest of the body and the brain. So all the sensations from the body go to the brain through the neck. That is why Brahma Mudra is an excellent practice for people who have issues with the Vyana Vayu. Sarva Shariragaha, people who have neuropathies, where the nerve are not functioning properly, sensory motor neuropathies, people who have, restless feet. We have restless feet. It's a Vyana disorder. Or we have, issues with circulation, cold feet, cold fingers, intermittent claudication of the, muscles of the lower limb, leading to issues with the blood circulation. This is all Vyana disorder. You want to enhance the flow. Kaya Kriya. Because Kaya Kriya works throughout the body and resets the psychophysiological connections. Brahma Mudra. So I'm not here to give you practices for each, but I'm making suggestions. When you want to enhance the prana, work on this area. So all the pranayama practices are useful. Anything that opens the chest, all the hatenas that we have in our tradition, those 15 practices will work on that. You want to work on the nabi, the samana, Agnisara is one of the best practices. Nauli is another practice. These are practices that work on this area. And again, a beautiful practice, Viparita Karani, for here. Then you want to work on the Gude, Apana. You want to enhance the Apana flow. Moola Bandha, Ashwini Mudra. The pelvic work that you are doing down here. These are practices you can bring down here. This is where, again, yes, Alet, the Pancha Sahita Pranayama, they go in tune with these pranavayus. There are specific patterns of breathing to work with these, and they influence different organic systems. So, Hridi Prano, Gude Apana, Samana Nabi Mandale, Udana Kanta Deshasto, Vyana Sarva Shariragaha. See, what is happening here is that these 5 flows of energy, and I hope you never again call them the 5 winds or the 5 airs. We use it because that has become our routine. But please try to understand these are flows of the same energy. And based on that flow, they are given different name. The same water is flowing in different rivers. Based on so many cultural ethos, the rivers are named differently. It doesn't mean the water is different. The water is one and the same, nourishing us. So the Pancha Prana Vayus are the physiological functions that are governed by our connection with the psyche. That is why they are psychophysiological, functional aspects of being human. To be human in its holistic, wholesome concept is when all of this is working. And how these are related. There's another concept. Vital air. Muggs has asked a question, vital air. We will use it as vital air. That is how even in my books and my father's books we have used that term. But what I'm saying is we need to go further. So at least when we are talking about it, at least when we are teaching, let us try to bring a bit more expansiveness into this. Because vital air, that air, people think of air as something very different than flow. What is meant by the term Vayu means a flow. And what flows? Water flows. Now let's look at 3 of these energies. Okay, we'll look at all of them, but still. Prana and Apana. These are often, especially in the Gitananda tradition, considered manifestations of equal and opposite energies. So we talk about the prana and the apana as sort of the bipolar opposites. So I want to bring that concept also here. Prana normally moves upward. So it likes to move up. Prana moves up. So think of anything that moves up. Upwards movement, prana. Now Udana also moves up. That is why Udana is the energy that is uplifting. Your communication should be uplifting, otherwise don't communicate. If you are depressing, then why communicate and spoil the day for others? Your communication should be uplifting, Udana Vayu. And Maharishi Patanjali in the Vibhuti Pada, again a pada that most people don't even touch. He talks about it. He says, if you contemplate the Udana, you will start to have the capacity to have levitation. You start to levitate because it is uplifting. The Udana Vayu is like, an energy at the throat, and you have just been lifted up by your throat. Imagine, a 7-footer catching you by your neck and lifting you up. That's the type of energy that has come with the Udana Vayu. And he says, through Udana, what happens is that Udana Jayat, you attain mastery over the Udana, and you can start to move over all sort of terrain. Jalapanka Kantakadishu Utkrantischa. Udana Jayat, through mastery of the Udana, through Samyama on the Udana, contemplation, Dana Dhyana Samadhi, Udana Jayat, Jalapanka Kantakadishu. What happens is Jalapanka, Jala is water. Oh, you can start to levitate over water. You can start, and everybody say, oh, you are a great yogi. Now that you can levitate over water. You levitate over water, mud, swampy areas, and the thorns that are filled in the forest. So in those days when the yogis were traveling through the forest, they had to find, areas where there would be water, there would be swampy areas, thorns. So if you mastered Udana, you could levitate over it. That is the concept. It is uplifting. Now Swamiji, he used to walk on the beach and not leave a footprint because he was so light. He was a big man. The body structure I have inherited is very similar to his. A big body structure. But when he walked, there was a lightness about it because there was that Udana Jayat. So you are uplifting yourself. You are not a burden on earth. You stop being a burden to Mother Earth because you have lifted yourself. But let's come back. That is Udana, for example. Similarly, Samana, he says, Samana Jayat Jwalanam. You start to have luminosity, the tejas, when you contemplate Samana. You are on fire. That's what happens. Samana Jayat Jwalanam. Jwalana is that you're just, wow. You're just on fire. The tejas is just flowing through you, that luminosity, that light, that fire. Doesn't mean your tail is on fire. Like Sher Khan in the Jungle Book. Let's get back. Prana is the energy that is moving upward. Apana is the energy moving downward. That is why the apana is very much related to the solid and liquids. Solids and liquids, and apana is very, very true because it goes down. Hopefully you urinate and you defecate downward. I hope it doesn't come upward. It would be very embarrassing. These things go down because solid and liquid go down by nature. So the apana is pushing downwards. Down and out. Apana is down and out. Prana is up and out. Up and out, down and out. So prana, apana. This is the normal flow. And samana is sort of like a circulating energy. It is circulating at the Manipura. This is why when we do the Yoga Nidra in the Gitananda tradition, we have that creation of the spiral from the navel center. Because we are trying to tap into that Manipura energy, that is spiraling energy there. Samana energy. Prana, apana, samana. Now the yogi said, okay, fine. This is normally happening. Can we change it? Because the yogic perspective is always trying to look at the other perspective. It's always trying to see it from a new dimension. That is why Lord Krishna says, what is day to the common person is night to the yogi. What is night to the common person is day to the yogi. You know, that vice versa perspective. It's like here it is morning in this part of the world and it's night in the North America. The same type of perspective he talks about. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagrati samyami Yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato mune. What a beautiful concept. So the yogi said, what can we do to change this? He said, we have to change it. So they said, okay, let us reverse the flow of energies. Up and out, down and out. So they started to say, we want to bring the prana down. We want to bring the prana down. We want to bring the apana up. So prana down, apana up to the samana. So the concept here is you have prana that's normally going up. You have apana that's going down. Okay? This is a normal thing. And what the yogi said, let's bring the prana down. Let's bring the apana up. And let them come and meet at the samana. What an amazing concept of the prana, apana coming together and at the samana coming together. Amazing energies, I'll tell you. The energy understanding of the yogis is beyond anything any modern yoga scholar can ever understand. For those who missed it last night, my dear Vinaya Chandra Badavati, he gave the most amazing presentation on the modern yoga scholarship in humanities. It was the most amazing exposition at the Bilva festival run by Mauli and her Damaru center. I'll tell you, please go and watch that because you will understand the threat that we are facing in the name of research, academic research into yoga. Prana is brought down. Apana is brought up. And at the samana, they all come together. Amazing. Amazing. Padma, you are not traveling to the future. You are all in the past. It's the Australians and New Zealanders who are in the future. You are still there yesterday. I am today. And my Australian, New Zealanders, they are already in the future. People who worry about whether the world will end tomorrow, they don't know it's already tomorrow in New Zealand. Okay, so you got it upside down, Padma. You are in the past. Malini is in the future and I'm in the present. That's why the MAP team. And the MAP team has the past, present and future working together. Padma in Canada, Malini down there in Australia and Ananda in India. The MAP team is past, present, future working together. What a beautiful way to come together. Prana coming down, apana coming up into samana. You know that symbol they use, the dark and light circles? Amazing, I tell you. This is what's happening. Prana, apana, samana. Do you see that symbol here in the mudra I am creating? Prana, apana into the samana. And a balance has been there. Because the yogis didn't want the energy to dissipate. He said, prana is going up and out, down and out. No, let's bring it together. What a beautiful way. What a beautiful concept coming together. So how do you do that? How do you prevent the prana from going up and out? Jalandhara bandha. How do you prevent the apana from going down and out? Moola bandha. So Moola bandha, when you do Moola bandha, it is not just pelvic exercise. Kegels. Kegels exercise for the pelvic area. Moola bandha is restraining the apana from going down. Now the apana cannot go down. So it says the door is locked. Let's go up. So it goes up to the samana. Do the Jalandhara bandha. Prana wants to go up. It says the door is locked. It starts to come down. You have created two locks. Moola bandha, Jalandhara bandha. So the prana, apana which was going down starts to come back. Prana which is going up starts to come back. And at the samana, now what do? What an amazing practice. Udhyana bandha. Prana, apana and samana. Jalandhara, Moola, Udhyana. And this is why the bandhas are not just physical exercises. Mula Bandha, to stop the loss of apana. Jalandhara, to stop the loss of prana. And Udyana Bandha, where they all come together into the samana. And it's at that point with the three locks coming together. The three Granthis, Brahma Granthi at Mooladhara, Vishnu Granthi at Manipura, and Mahadeva Rudra Granthi either at Vishuddha or the Ajna, they start to open. And now the energy can flow. And Ma Kundalini, she can arise and flow through the Sushumna, coming from the base, as Abhaya sings so beautifully. So beautiful. Mooladhara Moondel Kanalai Kalal Yelupum Karutharivit. That Kundalini. Kundali Adanil Kudi Ajabai Bindel Mandiram Velipada Uraithe Mooladharat Moondel Kanalai Kalal Yelupum Karutharivit. Kalal here means through the breath. Through the breath, this is happening. And that is why the bandhas are utilized with all the pranayama practices. Now there's another very interesting concept here. The Bhagavad Gita, Yogeshwar Krishna. I loved Vinay Chandra's talk last night where he said, when you think of yogi, you think of Lord Krishna, Yogeshwar Krishna. You think of Yogeshwara Krishna. When you think of yogi, you think of Maharishi Patanjali. Not someone who's done a 21-day yoga TTC and is suddenly a yogi. I really love that. You know, it is so important. So important. And this is why, you know, practices like Viparita Karani. Just to come back to it. Why is Viparita Karani so important? Because you are again... In Viparita Karani, automatically you are doing a Jalandhara, automatically you can do the Moola, and automatically an Udyana is happening. And again you have gone topsy-turvy, you have changed the flow of energies. That is why Viparita Karani is such an amazing mudra. That's why we don't call it an asana. That's why we call it a mudra, because in the mudra, the asana has been upgraded by understanding these energies through the bandhas. Coming back to the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse where he talks about apana being offered into the prana. The apana is offered into the prana is offered into the apana. And this is what is called pranayama parayana, the sacred practice. Sacred practice of pranayama, pranayama parayana, is the offering of the apana into the prana and the prana into the apana. You know, people, they just say, oh yeah, okay, this is just focusing on your inhalation and exhalation. That is such a superficial understanding. Such a superficial understanding when you say prana is the inhalation, apana is the exhalation. Prana is the inhalation, and so offering the inhalation into the exhalation, exhalation into inhalation is pranayama. They don't understand that these cultural concepts, they are percolating multi-dimensions. The prana is being offered into the apana. The prana and the apana, they are being offered into each other. What is happening? That same concept. Lock the prana so it comes down. Lock the apana so it comes up. And bring them together into the samana. And that is the peak point of pranayama. Where you then transcend them, because the opposites, the prana and the apana, which here are constituted as the bipolar opposites, like the ha and the ta. The ha, the solar energies, ta, the lunar energies. Just as the ha and the ta are balanced in Hatha Yoga, it is the physical science of balancing these equal and opposite energies. It is not just exercise. So important that this concept is brought out, because what is being done here is that the prana and the apana are coming together into the samana. And at that point, you transcend all of these activities. You are transcending the activities. Transcendence is the core of the yogic experience. Transformation and transcendence. I hope you can understand where we are. We need to transform, and then we need to transcend. From where we are, we have to transform. That's why yoga is transformational, and then it is transcendental. My father used to always joke about TM, transcendental meditation. And he used to say, all meditation is transcendental. Because otherwise it's not meditation. But today meditation just means, sitting and focusing on something. That is actually concentration, dharana. It has to be transcendental. There is a transcendence. Transcendence is an essential component of one's yogic journey. Transformation and transcendence. But before that, you have to first be aware of where you are. That's why awareness of how unaware we are is where we all have to start. How ignorant we are. That is where that avidya has to be dissipated by vidya. And who can dissipate it? Guru. That is the importance of the Guru Shishya Parampara. Ajnana timirantasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. That ajnana has been dissipated by jnana that has been applied to our eyes by the grace of the Guru. Guru Kripa and Bhagavad Kripa, the grace of the divine. For me, of course, Guru and divine are one and the same in essence. That transformational, transcendental process, where instead of the prana just doing its job, apana just doing its job, you have actually now brought them together, and in that oneness, you have achieved the transcendence of the duality. Dvandva atita. You have gone beyond the dvandvas, the bipolar opposites. Atita, to go beyond it. Dvandva atita has occurred through that process of apane jubbati pranam, prane panum tata pare, prana pana gati ruddva. Gati, that same word. Gati vicheda pranayama, as Maharishi Patanjali says. When you understand the Bhagavad Gita, when you understand the Yoga Sutras, when you understand these concepts, how they have come from the Vedic essence of yoga and the timeless seeds of yoga, not roots of yoga. And these people have got it all wrong. And then they try to create a root that, rootless root. We have to get back to the cultural ethos. We have to understand the ambience, the environment in which the inner growth is supported, sustained, nourished, and facilitated with love. That is the cultural ethos of yoga. I'm not saying wear Indian clothes and, dress Indian, eat Indian, and talk Indian. No. Please do not misunderstand me in that. The cultural ethos is much beyond that. I did my internship at JIPMER. And so I consider myself a JIPMERite. JIPMER is one of India's top medical institutions and worked there for more than 15 years. So I consider myself a JIPMERite. And my mentor, Seduraman sir and AK sir, both of them amazing mentors who, right from my time in JIPMER, have been nourishing me, nurturing me, and even today continue to bless me with their loving grace. I remember Seduraman sir used to talk about the JIPMER gene. And there's a certain gene of JIPMER. Institutions have that. That's the ethos we are talking about. That is the ethos of yoga we are talking about. We cannot lose it. You may have bigger buildings today, but do you have that JIPMER ethos? You may have amazing asanas and better marketing and, finer mats and yoga leotards, better Instagram photos, but, have we lost the essence? That essence is the cultural ethos. So, coming back to the pranavayus. Hridi prano gude apana samana nabi mandale udana kanta deshasto dhyana sarva shariragaha. So these are not just limited to these places. These places are the headquarters. They are from where they function. But the functional aspects of all the 5 pranas, they are throughout the body. They are not just throughout this body, but the Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, because the Annamaya without the prana is a dead body. The prana, they bring it to life, and then the other functions can start to be facilitated. So you start to move into the Manomaya, Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya through the understanding of these concepts. Let's keep learning, let's keep sharing, because sharing is caring, and to care is to be human. To care is to be human. It's a very essential quality to be human, is to care. And to share is another human quality. Can we care? Can we share? Next week, we will look at the Upaprana-vayus, the subsidiary airs, the reflexive functions and the higher functions that are brought out in Swamiji's beautiful concept of Paraprana-vayus. So in our tradition, we don't just talk about 10. Normally people talk about the 5 prana and 5 upaprana. We have 5 prana, 5 upaprana and 2 Paraprana-vayus. So we talk about Dwadasha Prana-vayu, 12. So today we have looked at the first 5, the functional aspects that enable us to be a psychophysiological aspect. And thank you, Appu. You reminded me of something I was thinking of and forgot in my flow today. When we do Naivedyam, when we offer food to the divine, and before we eat, we are supposed to chant these 5. Om Pranaya Swaha. Swaha is the offering. It is when you use the word Swaha that whatever you offered will be accepted. I remember our Pandit Nataraja Gurukul used to tell us, in the Homa, he said, you are offering something into the fire. He said it's like Ganesha, when it's a Ganapati Homa. Ganapati is there with his mouth open. Now his mouth is closed. When you use the word Swaha, the mouth opens and it is accepted. Of course, in India, we say if somebody has embezzled funds, we say Swaha Panita. Means they have eaten it and now you don't have it for the money was given to build the highway and somebody Swaha. So now there's no money to build the highway. Explains a lot of Indian roads which don't exist. But they exist on paper, they don't exist. Swaha. So Swaha is the time where the offering is accepted and taken fully. So Om Pranaya Swaha, Apanaya Swaha, Udanaya Swaha, Vyanaya Swaha, Samanaya Swaha. All the 5 are chanted. Om Pranaya Swaha, Apanaya Swaha, Udanaya Swaha, Vyanaya Swaha, Samanaya Swaha. And then what do we do? At that point, we then finally say Brahmane Swaha. The 6th one becomes the Brahman itself, that is nourished by all of these 5. So when we are doing Naivedyam, when we are offering the food to the divine, we use it. And actually, before we start the meal, we are supposed to take a few grains of the rice. And chanting this, we are supposed to take those grains. So that in that point, we are not just nourishing the physical, we are nourishing the energy. And at that point, we are then nourishing the Atma itself. Thank you so much for being with me. See you all later. And we are into the 90s of our Vishwa Yoga Prarthana. Looking forward to the 100th and the 108th soon. And so we'll meet later for that. And just so wonderful to have you all with me. Every week sharing with you is a process of my own growth. You are supporting my growth. And I hope that I am also supporting your growth with what I offer. May we all grow and glow together in yoga. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Dhanyavadaha. Shukriya, danke, grazie, gratias. Ciao, adios. Ayushman Bhava, Ayu Bovan. Nandri, vanakkam.